introduce our two next guests. Patricia Bynes, Democratic committee woman, who you may have seen on any number of national, international, and local. And I don't say that to embarrass you, but you've been very active since August 10th, perhaps, of last year. You live in the area of Ferguson. You represent that area as a Democratic committee woman, and you've spoken extensively on those issues that we've talked about there. And Randy Bynes, co-creator, STL Style, city supporter, city advocate, regional advocate, I would say, as well. You follow him on Instagram and you'll see what I'm talking about. Speaking of advocacy for our region, though, I want to start our conversation by showing you a piece of video that is now out playing to the public, pumping up the St. Louis pride, or at least that's the goal. Let's take a look at this, see what you think.
Great things don't just happen in St. Louis, they are St. Louis.
From the beer barons of yesterday to the crafty entrepreneurs of today.
And there's even more on tap with a thriving tech and startup community.
Surrounded by vibrant neighborhoods we can all be proud of. St. Louis is looking good.
Thank you. Take pride in it because we're ready to serve up another helping.
That's the spirit of St. Louis, and it's in all of us. Pass it along.
So I think it's fair to say that message might be intended for outside of the St. Louis area, or maybe not. Are we proud enough of our own city? Are people proud of St. Louis, where you live?
I would say yes, and it's because of the amount of people in the community and the community building that's been going on, not just to see what's going right, but also to address problems and not hide away from it anymore. And that is a great source of pride for people where I live.
So maybe it's changed in the last year?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's changed tremendously. And I think people are taking pride in saying, hey, we are leading the conversation on police brutality, on racism. International and national eyes are still looking at St. Louis and Ferguson to lead in these areas. And clearly things aren't perfect, but it seems like there are lots of people committed of all colors, all backgrounds on getting it right. That's what, that's a major sense of pride for me.
Are you proud? I know you're proud, but are we proud?
Definitely. You know, I would say that in the last 10 or 15 years, there's been a major shift in public sentiment and people in St. Louisans, the way they view their city, our psychology, our self-concept as a city. Because nationwide, there's been this back to the city movement all across the country, and St. Louis and cities like it are very well poised to kind of take advantage of that trend. The thing I think is really strong in St. Louis is the grassroots kind of DIY, dig your heels in the ground and make a change and a contribution and get noticed for it and make noticeable contributions. I think that's the real strength of a city like St. Louis, big enough to matter nationally and have an audience for cool things and initiatives and projects that matter, but also you know, it's intimate enough that connections are easily made and that people can kind of plug in a way that's meaningful. And so, you know, I think a campaign like that, it's got a great message. Star power always sells. I think it kind of misses some of the greatest strengths of the city in that, like, the regular people are really who matter too. You know, you don't have to go off and leave St. Louis to find yourself. You can actually, you know, get involved in the city here and make a difference.
Yeah, the anchor of that spot is coming to us from his studio in New York City.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and you know, a lot of the celebrities that we see there don't even live here, at least full time. And so, you know, there's so many great people and amazing, inspiring people doing creative, innovative, you know, outside the box things right here in St. Louis that their story doesn't necessarily get told. And I think that could really sell a whole segment of the nation, or at least the local, you know, metro area, into thinking about their city from a different perspective. And that is the most effective, is getting people who live here to be the best ambassadors for St. Louis.
We got to believe in our city ourselves first before we can ask someone else to do it.
Exactly.
Maybe the stories aren't being told of people who are doing the creative work, or maybe the hard work too. I don't know. Is there work going on post-Ferguson that people don't know about that you're encouraged by, or are you concerned about the pace of change?
Well, I already know that change is going to be slow. We're talking about changing hearts, minds, and then we're talking about changing policies in an institution. Maybe about 2 weeks ago or last week, there was a meeting, Ferguson and people who wanted to be involved in discussing what a civilian review board will look like in Ferguson, in showing the progress that's been made in trying to create that board. They were looking for public input. So just because it's not on the front pages and splashed on the news anymore doesn't mean that people weren't still there. And there was a large group of
people still show up to the meeting.
Absolutely engaged, gave their opinions, and are still driving change here. And when I say here, whether it's the city, because the city's also been very involved in talking about a civilian review board, but even out in the county, people are really starting to get involved in politics, questioning elected officials, doing research to figure out what's going on, and trying to tackle a lot of these hard issues and seeing what do they really think about these issues, because many people told me they never thought about most of this stuff before August.
What did either of you think about Todd's comment that we don't have maybe the political or the corporate leadership of someone kind of willing to stick their neck out and lead the region?
I would wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I think that leadership is of critical importance in taking St. Louis into the next level. A lot of the greatest things happening in the city happen in spite of leadership sometimes, which is sad. And then a lot of it just happens, it would happen whether leadership was involved or not. These are just national trends. Things are happening and evolving in a very organic way, regardless of who's ushering it in at the top level. But yeah, I think that what St. Louis really lacks is unity and a unified voice and somebody dynamic enough to rally behind and command the attention and captivate our inspiration to kind of believe in ourselves and be the best city we can be. That's not to say, it's no one person's responsibility or one government's, but when we're talking about the city and the county and things to invest in and priorities and regional initiatives, it seems like people are more concerned with what's happening in their own backyard versus what's best for the metro area at whole. And biased as I am, I will always say that you can never go wrong investing the most into creating the most vibrant urban core that we can, and that funnels out into the suburbs and then the exurbs too. And it also changes our own self-concept.
Hold it right there for 1 second. I want to go back. Let's go join Todd and talk a little bit more. In the meantime, I want to show you a tweet that might just kick off our next conversation.